let's head into the K-Wave News Zoom room now. Where thank you so much for your patience. Dr. Maget Bevacqua is at the Guam Museum right now on National Museum Day. Good morning, Doc. Unmute.
Afade, buenas.
Buenas, bananas, azules. So it's National Museum Day.
Doc.
Afade.
Hi. Are you like in the behind the scenes area of the museum?
Oh, I'm actually at the Bevacqua archive right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
We're preparing for an exhibit for later this year.
And so, in case you guys didn't know, the Bevacqua Archive has been designated as a repository for, it was Government of Guam's historical documents, Maget?
Yes, again, so you can, if you're ever interested in delving into sort of the island history, you've got GovGuam files for a lot of different agencies. You've got almost a complete run of all the newspapers that Guam has had since before World War II. You can even see some of the newspapers that were published before the war. And if you ever want to check out like the time that the Guam Congress walked out, the proceedings are here. Sort of the discussion at that time about the Navy land taking, citizenship, a lot of cool stuff. I love coming here and sort of just spending time going through documents.
Right. Maget, so is that just open to the public and you can just come in, or there's certain, like, you got to call it ahead, or?
So because of COVID, you do have to call ahead and make an appointment.
Okay.
And then, and then they'll screen you and they'll let you in. But the staff here is very helpful, in terms of guiding you sort of to what they have. Sort of this area right here, these are vertical files. So over the years, the librarians and scholars have put together different research on different topics. So if you have interest in a topic, you can come here and then you can find random things. So for example, the Ali shelter, there's a vertical file here that people have set aside documents about it. American Cancer Society, the Constitutional Convention, all sorts of stuff like that. So this is for a decolonization exhibit that's supposed to start hopefully in July at the museum.
Sorry, Maget. So I know right now the museum is closed, but you told me that we're anticipating maybe reopening next month. And for those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Mike is now with the Guam Museum.
Oh yes, I'm good. So we're closed to the public now, but our goal is to open in June. We have the permanent exhibit that's been upstairs. We've been closed for more than a year now. And we're also planning a new exhibit in the downstairs area, in the rotating exhibit. And so our goal, that's our goal. We've been working hard. I sent you some images because we've been going through the collection and pulling out pieces for the new exhibit. It's written by 4 young Chamorro writers and scholars who basically wanted to tell the story of the Chamorro people 500 years after contact with Magellan. So they wrote this exhibit as part of our commemoration, sort of the Chamorro story when the Spanish came, when the Spanish ship, the Elcano, came a few months ago. And so they've been publishing it in the PDN. Joe Kinata from the Guam Preservation Trust has been working with us to turn it into an exhibit.
Wow. And this is this like the first big project that you're working on now that you're over there?
Yeah, that's the first exhibit. And then the one that I'm here in the archives right now will be the exhibit after that, hopefully to open in July. We have a visiting scholar from Brown University, Kevin Escudero, who's part of his sort of family history is that his ancestors were here for Operation New Life.
Oh, wow. That's the Vietnam,
exactly.
The Vietnam refugee program where they brought a bunch of Vietnamese refugees here to Guam, and some of them stayed and settled, right?
A few of them did.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was at the University of Guam, I met a few students whose parents were part of that. And so Dr. Kevin Escudero, he's a professor at Brown University. And so as part of sort of his own exploration of his family history, he decided to kind of take up a project where he would explore Guam's political status, create an exhibit around educating around those sorts of issues. And so he's hiding. He's hiding in the stacks right now. I don't think he wants to be on camera. I'm just kidding.
Do you have any exhibits coming up about how bad the CDC is?
That's when I was listening to that conversation, that's part of the
Oh, here we go. Wait
federal-
a minute.
the federal-
Dr. Mike is going to tie this into decolonization
Hey.
right now in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, Doc.
Oh.
Begin rant.
No, close. I was about to do that, but I thought that you might anticipate me doing that.
Aha.
But no, it's more sort of the federal prejudice. It's just that when you talk to people in the federal government, a lot of times over the years, you know how people say that people used to say that Guam was Goonie birds, that Guam was cannibals, that Guam was all these things.
Mhm.
There's people in the federal government who still believe stuff like that. And no one has really challenged their assumptions about Guam for a really long time. And so when I heard you talking about that, I was like, that sounds like sort of that federal prejudice that we always kind of have to deal with, where a lot of it is just that they don't know and they don't care.
Is it?
And
is
so
it-
whatever you heard from a friend who is stationed in Guam is just as valid as real research.
Is it
on what Guam
overt?
is.
Is it overt insular cases type of racism, Doc, or is it like the more subtle systemic kind?
It's more subtle. It's the Gatgu kind. It's the lazier kind of racism. You don't gotta have torches around Confederate monuments for that type of racism. You can do it from your computer
Mhm.
All
while you're
right,
sitting at home.
back to the museum before you get in trouble. I don't think you will, given who your boss is. But Doc,
No,
so-
but I agree with you.
yeah, Doc. So let's when we talk about anticipating reopening the museum in June, what's it going to take to actually reopen it? I mean, do you guys have a set date, or is it just more of like an idea?
We don't have a set date yet because there's a lot of pieces that we're trying to work with. But one of the really exciting things, though, and one reason why I was brought on, is because the museum we're really expanding what the museum is. I mean, some of you have heard about the military buildup, human remains being found, and so at the end of this year, they're supposed to open the Guam Cultural Repository, and so a lot of the remains are supposed to go there. And we keep them and the museum holds them for now, but a lot of them will end up there until they end up in sort of the Naftan Shrine or another sort of permanent sort of reburial. And so part of what we're also doing is trying to prepare for that, because the museum it's not just sort of what you see on the walls, but the museum takes care of artifacts. It takes care of basically the history and the story of the island. And so sometimes our job is to kind of find ways to educate, to put it out there for people to learn. But sometimes it's also just preserving things, holding on to things.
Right.
And so that's another issue sort of that we're dealing with right now,
Right.
is trying to prepare for the opening of the cultural repository, which they're building at UOG right now.
Right. And that's kind of been the idea, right, with the museum, is that we've had these different, like, was that Hornbostel collection and other artifacts. They're like kind of scattered to the winds, and this Guam Museum was supposed to provide a home for all these things.
Oh, yes. And that's why once we get a sort of that facility and more space, we can start to do that. Because for many years, the museum didn't have a permanent home. And then eventually sort of when we finally did get a permanent home, there was this issue where we've been holding a lot of archaeological artifacts, a lot of human remains. And so I'm hopeful that in the near future, they can break ground on the Naftan, sort of the reburial site, where we can put a lot of these bones to rest, that we can put them back in the ground and give them the respect that they deserve.
Right. You know, it's interesting. We had the Shippo on earlier, and I was asking him about the findings, right? So there's the bones, the burials that they find, but then what's supposed to happen is these archaeologists are supposed to study these findings, preserve them in place, and then report the findings to the Shippo. But are those findings, are they going to be incorporated into any future exhibits?
that's the hope. The hope for the Guam Cultural Repository is that because it's at UOG already, we really want to work closely with the university to get students trained, to create opportunities for faculty and to start, like you said, creating those publications. Because I think, because a lot of people don't realize, one of the things that's been interesting about following what the military has been, doing up north, there used to be an assumption that no one really lived up there in ancient times. But because of this construction, we're realizing that may not be true at all. And that some archaeologists said, oh, well, some of these settlements, people were just hanging out, They didn't really live there. They maybe just had a barbecue there every 100 years or something like that. And then they just moved on.
They had a bench, they just hang out.
Yeah, just have a jam session in ancient times,
Then
move on. But now we know that there may have been settlements there, village complexes, and so and really trying to. One thing that I'm very excited about, as you mentioned, the SHPO historic preservation, is I hope that we can get more young people interested in archaeology, because there's always opportunities for it here on island. And then many people come from off island to do the work. But as we've found, some may not be invested in the things they find. They may not care. They're just here to kind of complete a job. And so the more that we can train young people for that work who are from here, who sort of can recognize that this is part of their heritage, this is part of their history, I think the better for the island.
There you go. Doc, thank you for coming on here. You're right, though, the representation, it's key. I mean, not just at the museum and in the fields relative to studying and reporting on our history, but I mean, across all boards, right? You talk to doctors who say, oh, you need doctors who represent the community. Police officers, you need, police officers who are more reflective of the people who make up the community. So totally get it. And we want to do a tour. I don't know when we can do that, if we got to wait till you guys reopen.
We definitely can. Oh, and one thing that I wanted to put out to everyone who's watching is that one thing we're hoping for is volunteers. If anyone is interested in volunteering at the Guam Museum, message us on social media. You can email me, michael.bevacqua@dca.guam.gov. But we're hoping to get some volunteers lined up so that when we open, hopefully next month, we can have people ready to handle tours, to help us with collections, all sorts of stuff. So if anybody who's watching over the age of 18, if you're interested in volunteering, please get in touch with me. Let me know.
Okay, thanks, Doc.
Is this Mossy?
Mago Moss. There you go, Dr. Maget. Oh, wait. Sorry, because we're debating, is it Bevacqua or Bevacqua? I think we lost him.
Oh, did he hang up? Oh, man.
Maybe he'll WhatsApp me. Hey,